Hi, welcome to week 3. This is Dr. Barry DeZamba. During this week, we're going to introduce you to vocabulary and terminology. For example, LOINC, L-O-I-N-C, SNOMED, and many other types of ontologies, vocabularies, and classification systems. If you take a look at the module for this week in Canvas, I'd like you to start off just by reading Fred Trotter's Big Entry. This, to me, is probably the best synopsis of why interoperability is so important and yet why it's also so challenging. If you're interested, Fred Trotter wrote a book, I want to say it's probably going back to around 2009 or so, and it's called Hacking Healthcare. So some things have changed since then. Certainly we're in a different version of ICD codes and meaningful use, but it's a really good book. It's an inexpensive book. You could probably pick up a used copy on Amazon for very little. But it really introduces folks to all the different types of coding systems, because you don't need to know how to do the coding, but as a health informatics professional, you do need to know what these systems are. As you go through this week in Canvas, there are some lecture materials. These are open education resources. There is an introduction to medical documentation review. And then there's some links out to resources on the internet that are freely available. You don't need to read everything, but I would like you to browse through and learn what ICD is. There are some examples of how different diseases and conditions are coded. There's CPT and HCPCS, HCPCS codes, LOINC codes, RX norm, and SNOMED. And what you'll find is that when you do health informatics work, many times you're going to have to know how to look up what these codes are, whether it's using some of these lookup tools or it's going through the literature to determine what are the ICD codes that are used to diagnose a certain condition or disease. What are the CPT codes to find a certain procedure? What are the LOINC codes for certain lab tests? As an example, I don't have a current count, but back in the spring of 2020, when we were in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, pretty quickly when we started getting tests, there were very quickly 138 different types of COVID-19 tests. I don't even know what that number is today. I'd have to look it up. But these are things that you would need to know. RX norm is for medications. It's really the most common ontology for medications. And then SNOMED is not always used in every health system. I think it's used more overseas. But what we will find is that when many healthcare systems bring their data together, a lot of times they map all of their coding systems into SNOMED. And so you want to browse through these and really understand, when it comes to interoperability, all the ways that we can do great things for healthcare, as well as the challenges that could be experienced. And you want to think about these things as well as the past 2 weeks when you work on your assignment this week, which is to develop a list of policies. If you have any questions about the material for this week, after exploring and browsing through these sites, please feel free to reach out to me through the Canvas inbox with any questions that you have.